Prologue, The House That Waits. There is a house at the end of a forgotten road. It stands alone among crooked trees and sinking earth. No roofs nearby, no neighbors, only the long breath of the forest and the cold whisper of wind. People say the house is empty, but the house is never empty. It listens, it remembers, and it waits for someone to open the door again. Chapter 1. The Road into the Fog. The night was already thick when Claire drove up the narrow forest road. Her car rattled as the gravel shifted under the tires. Fog gathered in heavy sheets, turning the headlights into pale, trembling halos. The world outside the windshield looked blurred, like a half-finished memory. She checked the GPS again. The signal flickered. The screen froze. Then it went black. Great. She was alone, in the dark, with a dead GPS, following a road that barely existed. The house had been left to her in a will. A distant relative she barely remembered. A name she had only seen once. But a house in the countryside sounded peaceful. A place to restart her life. The forest around her felt wrong. Too still. Too aware. She turned off the radio. Static had been crawling through every channel since the last town. Whispers, too. Like voices almost forming words, but dying before they could speak. Claire gripped the wheel tighter. Ahead, through the fog, she finally saw a shape. A tall iron gate. Open. Waiting. Chapter 2. The Gate. The gate looked older than the trees. Rust crawled across the bars like veins. The fog pressed against the metal as if trying to get in. Claire stepped out of the car. The air was colder here. Not natural cold, more like the chill you feel before someone touches your shoulder, even when no one is behind you. The gate hung slightly crooked, not forced open, not broken, just open. She hesitated, then she walked through. The forest changed instantly. The shadows grew longer. The silence became deeper. The ground felt softer under her boots, like it had been stepped on recently, by many feet. But she saw no tracks. The gravel path curled through the trees. At its end stood a massive silhouette. The house. A heavy shape emerging from the fog. Cold. Dark. Watching her. Chapter 3. The House That Breathes. The house rose out of the mist like a giant animal resting in the dark. 3 floors, a steep roof, wood that had turned black with age, windows that looked like open eyes. Claire walked toward the porch. Each step felt slower than the last, like the ground itself was trying to hold her back. The front door was tall and made of dark oak. A brass handle, a keyhole shaped like a mouth. Something dripped nearby. A soft tap, tap, tap. Not water. It sounded thicker, more deliberate. When she reached the door, she noticed a key hanging from a rusted nail. Old, heavy iron. But when she touched it, it felt warm. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A notification. No signal, no GPS, but a text message appeared on her screen. Do not go inside. No sender, no number, no explanation. She stared at it. The message vanished. Her screen went black again. She breathed out slowly. Then she unlocked the door. The hinges groaned like something waking up. Chapter 4. Inside the Stillness. The air inside the house was stale and cold. Dust floated like tiny pale ghosts in the dim light of her phone's screen. The door closed behind her, on its own. Softly. Gently. Too gently. Claire stood in a long hallway. Old portraits lined the walls. All the faces were blurred with age, except their eyes. The eyes looked clear, focused, watching her. The wooden floor creaked under her step, and then creaked again, even after she stopped moving. A slow creak, like a delayed echo, or a second pair of footsteps trying to match her pace. She turned. No one there. She walked deeper inside. The house felt bigger on the inside than it looked outside. Rooms stretched long and narrow. Ceilings seemed higher than they should be. Every doorway looked hungry. Every shadow seemed thicker than the last. In the living room, she found something on the old fireplace mantel. A key. New. Shiny. Silver. A small tag hung from it. Do not open room 6. Claire frowned. There were no numbers on any door she had passed. She lifted the key. The metal was freezing cold. Then she heard it. A sound from upstairs. 3 slow knocks. Evenly spaced. Deep. Hollow. Knock. ... Knock. ... Knock. Claire froze. The floor above her seemed to vibrate with each knock. She waited, heart pounding. The knocking stopped. Silence. Not empty silence. Listening silence. The house was awake. Chapter 5. The First Night. Claire set her bags down in the living room and forced herself to breathe. She told herself she was tired, that the isolation of the forest was messing with her senses, that the house was old and old houses make sounds. But the excuses felt thin. Too thin. She found the fuse box and switched the power on. The lights flickered. A low hum filled the rooms, like the house was inhaling electricity after years of hunger. She turned on a lamp. The glow was weak and yellow. It barely pushed back the shadows. She sat on the dusty sofa. The cushions sagged under her weight, releasing the smell of old fabric and forgotten years. Something shifted in the hallway. A soft shuffle. Not loud enough to be footsteps, but not random enough to be the house settling. Claire held perfectly still. The noise stopped. Then, from the far end of the hallway, she heard breathing. Slow, measured, almost human, coming from a place too dark to see. She stood, heart pounding, and grabbed her phone. Its screen lit her face. The battery drained 10% instantly. Then another 5%. The phone buzzed. A second message appeared. Room 6 is not empty. The screen flickered, and the phone shut off. The house settled back into silence. Waiting. Breathing. Thinking. Claire looked up the stairs. There were 6 doors on the upper floor. And one of them had started to open. Just a few inches. Just enough to see darkness behind it. just enough for something inside to see her. Chapter 6. Room 6 breathes. The door on the upper floor stayed half open. A thin slice of darkness stared down at Claire like a waiting eye. The air around the stairwell grew heavier. She felt it on her skin, like a weight being placed on her shoulders. Claire stepped forward. The old wood groaned under her foot. The sound echoed up the stairs, then came back down again, slightly delayed. It did not sound like an echo. It sounded like something else was stepping when she stepped. She approached the stairs slowly. Each rise looked darker than the last. Her heartbeat was loud enough to feel in her throat. Halfway up, she stopped. Something shifted behind the open door. A soft scrape, like a bare foot dragging across the floor. She held the railing. Her fingers were trembling. "Hello?" she said quietly. Silence. Then a soft thud, as if something inside the room had dropped onto its hands. Claire forced herself to breathe. She took the next step. And the next. At the top of the stairs, the 6 doors stretched out in a line. 5 were closed. 1, room 6, was open just enough to show a vertical strip of shadow. The house felt tight around her, like the walls were inching closer. She touched the edge of the door with one finger. The wood was warm. Too warm. Like someone had been holding it from the other side. Then she saw movement. Not shape, not form. Just movement. In the black gap between the door and the frame. Something pulled back quickly. Silent. Cautious. Claire stepped away from the door. The floorboard behind her creaked. She spun around. Nothing there. But the air felt disturbed, like someone had just walked past her. Like someone was still standing right behind her shoulder. She backed away from room 6, slowly, one step at a time. The door responded. It opened another inch. No noise, no resistance, like it was breathing out. Claire felt her throat tighten. A cold prickling spread across her scalp. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She nearly screamed. With shaking hands, she took it out. The screen flickered weakly. Only 4% battery left. A message blinked through the static screen. It knows you are here. Claire gasped. The hallway lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The third flicker stayed dark for a heartbeat too long. In that brief blackout, Claire heard a whisper from inside room 6. A voice so soft she could not tell if it was male or female. Not angry, not loud, just aware. It whispered a single word. Closer. The lights came back. Room 6 was now open wide. The darkness inside was absolute, thick, opaque, like a void waiting to swallow light. Something moved deep inside the black. Not forward, not toward her. Just shifting, stretching, waking. Claire turned and ran down the stairs. Chapter 7. The Dead Phone. Claire reached the bottom of the stairs and gripped the railing to steady herself. Her breathing was fast and uneven. The house felt heavier now, as if it had leaned in closer, listening to every breath she took. She tried her phone again. It flickered to life for 1 second. The screen showed a single line of text. You opened the house. Then the battery icon flashed red. 1%, 0%, black. The phone was dead. The house exhaled. She could hear it. A low, slow movement of air through the walls. Not wind, more like lungs. Claire stepped backwards into the living room. Her shoes brushed against something on the floor. A folded piece of paper. She knelt and picked it up. The paper was old, yellowed at the edges, but the ink looked fresh, clear, dark. It said, "Do not look into the darkness of room 6. If it sees your eyes, it learns your shape." Claire felt a chill run down her spine. She dropped the note. It drifted to the floor like something soft, but landed with a sound that was not soft at all. A heavy thump, like a thick object hitting the wood. She backed away. Upstairs, room 6's door creaked. Not closing, opening further. Very slowly, very smoothly, as if someone inside was pushing it with the tips of their fingers. Claire's breath caught in her chest. The house was not alive. It was worse. It was occupied. Chapter 8. The Room That Wasn't in the Blueprint. Claire spent several minutes standing perfectly still in the living room. Her pulse was loud. Her vision felt too sharp, as if the house itself was pushing every detail into her eyes. She needed answers. Anything that would explain room 6. Anything that would make this place feel grounded in reality again. She found a drawer beneath the fireplace mantel. The wood stuck for a moment, as if glued shut by time. When she forced it open, dust exploded into the air. Inside were folders. Old, fragile, full of papers, blueprints, notes. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled them out. The top blueprint was labeled Hollowbrook Estate, Original Floor Plan, 1912. She spread it across the table. The lines were pale and delicate, but clear enough to read. Downstairs, living room, kitchen, study, cellar stairs. Upstairs, 5 bedrooms. Only 5. Claire counted again. 5. But she had seen 6 doors upstairs, one at the far end of the hall. Room 6. The blueprint did not include it. Her skin crawled. She checked the next blueprint, dated 1947, another one from 1972, another from 1999. All of them showed the same thing. 5 rooms on the 2nd floor. Always 5. No 6th door, no 6th space, no hidden extension, no explanation. Claire sat down slowly. The house had a room that did not exist in any official plan. A room someone added later. A room that was hiding. Or a room that grew by itself. A piece of paper slipped out from between the blueprints. A hand-drawn map, shaky lines, uneven lettering. At the top, in hurried writing, "Do not enter the added room. It was not built. It appeared." Claire felt the air around her tighten, as if the walls were listening. The map showed the upstairs hallway, 5 labeled rooms, and a blank space drawn in heavy, dark pencil at the end. The blank space had no name, no label, just a message beneath it. It listens at the door. Claire's throat dried. She flipped the map over. More writing. Messy, frantic. The room fits itself around whoever lives here. It changes shape. It moves. It follows the occupant. Do not let it learn your footsteps. Thunder rumbled somewhere deep in the woods, but no storm was forming outside. The house itself seemed to be reacting. Claire stood quickly. She grabbed the papers and stuffed them back into the drawer, but one sheet slipped free and landed at her feet. A small photograph, black and white, old. A family standing in front of the house. Mother, father, 2 children. And behind them, in the upstairs window, a dark shape. No face, no features, just a tall silhouette leaning out of the darkness. Room 6's window. Claire swallowed hard. The floor above her creaked, a long, slow drag of weight from one side of the hall to the other. Something was moving in the room that wasn't supposed to be there. Something pacing. Something testing the floorboards. She held her breath. The pacing stopped. Then another sound followed. 3 slow knocks, deep and hollow. Not on the door. Inside the wall. Like the room was shifting, trying to grow, trying to adjust itself to her presence. Claire felt the coldness creep down her back. The house had followed her inside, and room 6 was adjusting to her shape. Final chapter. The door that should never open. The house was no longer silent. Claire could hear it breathing through the walls, a slow rhythm that matched nothing human. Room 6 paced above her, dragging its weight from one corner to the other, as if tasting the space, testing the boards, waiting for the right moment. Claire knew she couldn't stay. She also knew running wasn't enough. Something in this house wouldn't let her go unless she ended it. She grabbed the blueprints, the notes, the photograph. She studied the map one last time. At the very bottom, in tiny handwriting, the final warning read, "The room exists only if you fear it. Starve it. End the house. Do not look inside." Claire stared up the staircase. Room 6 waited. The door was half open, darkness breathing in and out like a slow, patient lung. She took a deep breath, then reached for the fuse box. With trembling hands, she turned every switch off. One by one, the lights died. The living room went black. The hallway drowned in shadow. The oxygen in the air seemed to thin. Upstairs, room 6 went silent. Completely still. The house held its breath. Claire lit a single match. The flame shook, but it was enough. She walked to the curtains. Thick, old, heavy. Then she set them on fire. The dry fabric ignited fast, too fast for anything normal. Flames crawled upward like hungry fingers. The room filled with heat. The house reacted instantly. A long, low groan rolled through the floorboards. A shudder trembled through the walls. Room 6 slammed its door shut with a sound like a roaring animal. The walls began to pulse, like veins, like something inside was screaming without sound. Claire backed toward the front door. The fire spread across the beams. Smoke rose in thick, heavy waves. The heat grew so intense that the windows cracked like thin ice. Room 6 began pounding. Not with fists. Something heavier. Something desperate. Bam! 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 The fire roared harder, and the ceiling above room 6 splintered. A long, hollow cry rolled down the staircase, a cry that no human could make. Something in the room was burning, and it was dying. Claire stumbled outside into the cold night air. She fell to her knees, gasping. The fog around the house evaporated in the heat. Flames climbed through the roof. The house groaned louder, like a creature collapsing under its own weight. Room 6 gave one final furious blow. Then, the entire roof caved in with a deep, choking roar. The fire consumed everything: wood, walls, history, secrets. The shadows behind the windows twisted and shrank as if dragged into the flames by unseen hands. She watched until the structure sagged inward and the last scream of the house faded into the night. The forest was silent again. Completely silent. No breathing walls, no pacing footsteps, no knocks. Only the crackle of dying fire. She stood slowly, covered in ash, trembling, but alive. The house was gone, and room 6, whatever it had been, had burned with it. Claire turned toward the empty road, the world finally quiet. Behind her, the last surviving beam of the house snapped in the fire, and from deep within the collapsing wood, she heard one final whisper. Soft, weak, dying. Closer. Then the fire swallowed it completely. The house was dead, and Claire walked away.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you in the next video.